Welcome, friends,
to the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
I'm Uncle Dan.
And I'm Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
Indeedio. That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
we're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
Engage. Hi, fellas.
Oh, hi.
Well, hello.
How's it going? It is a crazy beautiful day here in our fair city.
Glorious day here. Yeah, very, really very pretty.
We stood out back talking to our neighbors in the blazing beautiful sun for a good hour almost. It was so pleasant.
I did the same thing, but I just stared at a wall.
That's the right thing to do.
Well, your neighbors don't want to talk to you, Doug. Not after the incident. But yeah, it's a beautiful day here, and it's kind of helped lift our spirits. I don't know if that'll be evidenced in the show, but we have a show, and it is a show, which is technically a show. And Dan, you're going. What are you doing?
We're gonna do a little bit more Book of Mormon, and I apologize in advance.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. And It's
hard to make it. It's hard to make fun of because it's such a well-written show.
And I'm going to talk, I guess, about the origin of the species.
Is that what that was?
I think so.
And then I'm going to bring it home talking about another threat to our democracy. Hey!
Yay!
Yeah. So it's a fun show. It's a fun show. So dive in, enjoy. Don't forget that our content is going up all the time in segments on YouTube. You can share those, send them to people you love, to people you hate, to people you've never met.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Send them to your legislators. See if they help. And then there's a really nice little community going on over at Facebook with the unofficial website. What are we calling it? The Unofficial Heretic Hangout, I think.
There you go.
Yeah. So go over there, meet some people, do the things, and let's do a show.
Uncle Mark.
You
know what makes the Book of Mormon such a great book?
I mean, how much time do we have? like you just let me count the ways. I've just counted the ways.
It's long, you know.
It works as a paperweight.
It weighs a lot. Yeah, that's what matters in literature is per pound. When I got to the end of the Book of Mormon, I felt the same thing I did at the end of Avatar, which was there's so much more story to tell. Right? I've never seen that movie.
Have you not?
No.
Yeah, you're better off. Don't watch that
for real. Well, speaking of interminably long books in the Book of Mormon, Uncle Dan, you want to bring it home, baby?
Oh, you think we're getting home this time?
Oh boy!
You swore it was a two-parter.
I didn't. I did no such thing.
God, I swore it was a two-parter.
I thought I was going to make it through in one part. So I am. Believe me, I'm as upset as you guys are. Anyway, when last we left Third Nephi, we were in chapter 6, some 2,000 years ago, somewhere in the Americas, and Joseph Smith, the writer of the book. Asterisk, had forgotten entirely how time works and what any semblance of narrative structure looks like, and was working toward a big moment, but was torturing us all horribly with unreadable drivel before he got there.
Yeah, he really puts the ass in asterisk.
Yes, indeed. And the drivel continues in chapter 7 with a new satanic panic.
Oh, God.
In the space of just a few years, suddenly a new cult has popped up, and Satan was directing it, and everybody was turning away from the Lord. See if you can follow these similes, will you?
No.
And thus, 6 years had not passed away since the more part of the people had turned from their righteousness, like the dog to his vomit, or the sow to her wallowing in the mire. The fuck are you doing, Joseph Smith? Jesus.
You know, we made the point last time that it never really quite dawned on me as as such a fatal flaw to how terrible this book is that he was just making it up and saying it out loud.
Yeah,
and his friend
or
was,
at least we assume, or at least that's the story.
That's
I don't know. Who knows how much of this who knows what he.
But
was
a lot of it
fucking
makes
doing.
sense if it's just a guy going, and then and he's looking around the room. A book
Right.
came from the West. You know what I mean?
And it becomes very clear in this book a lot of times that he's literally, like we talked about last time, that he was just vamping a lot of the time.
And without a doubt, in Joseph Smith's dirt farm, there was at any given time, a dog eating its vomit and a pig returning to its
wallowing in the mire.
Yeah, you work in the medium you have.
I do like that that his simile was that the people had turned away from righteousness the way a dog turns to just don't spin me around like that, Joe. Come on. Anyway, even the non-Satanists of the society were inexplicably breaking up into tribes that were against each other. Every man tribing up with his family, his kinship, and his friends. Not sure how that would work. Assuming people had friends outside of their family and kinship. Why? I don't. Anyway, somehow it happened. And the bad Satan guys were really wanting to destroy the tribes, but unfortunately the tribes were too big, leading to this incredibly clear and totally understandable verse. Please do your damnedest to follow along. And by the way, this is, again, just one sentence. And it came to pass that they were not so strong in number as the tribes of the people, who were united together, save it were their leaders did establish laws, everyone according to his tribe. Nevertheless, they were enemies, notwithstanding that they were not a righteous people, yet they were united in hatred against those who had entered into a covenant to destroy the government.
Good.
Excuse me while I spend the rest of my life trying to invent a time machine just so I can go back to the 1800s and punch Joseph Smith in the mouth.
Go back to the 1800s where that sentence began. I think you just killed every English teacher major listening to this show.
If we ever do a Book of Mormon movie, that has to be the text crawl at the beginning.
We'll challenge 10 people to diagram that sentence.
Well, and then also you're like, you just said, well, the people are all broke up into tribes and didn't like each other, and then one sentence it's like, and the tribes all banded together and were able to fight off the bad people.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding that they were enemies, and then they were it's anyway.
The Zodiac Killer could not diagram that sentence.
Yeah. Okay, so the rest of this chapter is more of the same kind of nonsense. It includes a bit about young Nephi, son of Nephi, son of Helaman, son of Helaman, son of Alma, son of Alma, descendant of Nephi, really pissing some people off because he was such a good prophet that everybody heard him, or everybody that heard him knew that he was speaking the Lord's own truth, and that made them mad, I guess? I don't know. What did he tell them? What prophetic words of wisdom did he impart unto them that might indeed be also applied to our lives? Do we want to know this? Sure. Here's verse 17. And he did minister many things unto them, and all of them cannot be written, and a part of them would not suffice. Therefore, they are not written in this book. Well, fuck you too, then, Joe Smith.
See, he's just making it up.
Oh my God, that's so funny. And that comes only, like 2 verses after that, like, interminable run-on sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't talk about that here. We got to get places.
Right. Well, I can't write them all, and if you write too little of it, then that's not good either. So we're just not going to write any of it.
That is funny.
But I will use the same cheat code and just fucking skip the rest of the chapter and move on to chapter 8. So, you guys, it's finally chapter 8. And why is chapter 8 important? Because this is when the 33rd year passes away, making it the 34th year since Jesus was born all the way on the other side of the world. This is it! The year that all the prophets have been telling us about, and this is the time William Miller and Harold Camping are right This shit is about to hit the fan. Now, I want to stop here and remind our listeners about what happened in the Bible when Jesus was crucified. Listeners will remember all the way back in episode 27 when Uncle Doug compared the various gospel accounts of the crucifixion. The Bible has accounts of some pretty freaky supernatural events happening when Jesus died. 3 hours of darkness right in the middle of the day. That's spooky, right? Then there was the veil of the temple, which totally ripped, like, all by itself. So, woo! And then the Gospel of Matthew really goes off the rails and says that there was an earthquake that split rocks, scary, and a bunch of saints rose from their graves and wandered around town for a while.
Yeah.
So,
hello. Yeah.
on the whole, a lot of crazy shit seems to have happened in the Holy Land.
And I love that that's just kind of the end of that story. A lot of saints just got up, took a stroll around town as the undead.
Yeah.
Anywho, what's next?
Like you do when the Lord and Savior is murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bubba, hold on to your crown of thorns because you ain't seen nothing yet. Here on the good side of the world, shit got for real. First thing that happened, a storm, but one like nobody had ever seen. Thunder so powerful it shook the earth like it was going to split in two. And then, in a slight failure of chronology, there was exceeding sharp lightnings.
Lightnings?
Yes, lightnings. There were many lightnings and thunderings that will happen multiple times throughout the book. The city of Zarahemla did take fire, which is an awkward wording, but one assumes that it isn't very good. But it's nothing compared to what happened to the city of Moroni. That's right, he also recycled names of people into names of places. The city of Moroni fucking sunk into the sea.
Holy shit.
And all the inhabitants drowned. Now,
Whoa.
one dude is murdered on the other side of the globe, and suddenly over here, a whole city drowns. Meanwhile,
God
back
decides
in Judah,
to punish a whole city of people who've never heard of his only begotten son.
oh, it gets worse.
And
baby.
who, by the way, didn't kill him.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Yeah. Meanwhile, back in Judah, where they actually killed the guy,
Right.
things get a little dark, and some saint zombies mill about for a minute.
And a sheet
How
got
is that
ripped.
fair?
Yeah.
And a curtain rips.
Yeah, exactly. So, Moroni is Atlantis now, not to be confused with another city, Moroni Ha, because obviously, which is totally buried underneath a new and previously non-existent mountain. And there's more. I'll just read from the book. And there was a great and terrible destruction in the land southward, but behold, there was more great and terrible destruction in the land northward. For behold, the whole face of the land was changed because of the tempest and the whirlwinds and thunderings and the lightnings and the exceedingly great quaking of the whole earth. You remember, if you remember last week, there was a very odd period of public works and infrastructure improvements right before all this happened, when they built up all the cities and they made a bunch of highways and roads.
Yeah,
You guys
infrastructure
remember that?
week. Yeah.
Well, all of that shit was destroyed, and it literally mentions it. This is verse 13. And the highways were broken up, and the level roads were spoiled, and many smooth places became rough, and many great and notable cities. This is crazy. Many great and notable cities were sunk, and many were burned, and many were shaken, till the buildings thereof had fallen to the earth, and the inhabitants thereof were slain, and the places were left desolate.
Why?
Yeah.
Why-
What did
and-
they
and-
do?
Yeah,
What did
exactly.
they do? Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that.
Oh.
But remember that this book is ostensibly being written by a guy going tink tink tink, tink 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 tink.
That's
Tink, tink.
That's not exactly true. It is the contention of this podcast that this book was written by two assholes in upstate New York.
I am going to, on my deathbed, I'm going to be trying to imagine what smooth places became rough.
I do have to go on with the verses because it actually gets really delightful. And there were some cities which remained, but the damage thereof was exceedingly great, and there were many of them. And there were many in them who were slain, And there were some who were carried away in the whirlwind, and whither they went no man knoweth, save they knew that they were carried away.
Bye.
And behold, their house did land upon the wicked witch of the west.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, the storm and the earthquakes and the whirlwinds and all the devastation that went with it apparently only lasted like a few hours, which that is some effective natural disastering, my friends.
Yeah.
But we're not done yet. Now comes the darkness. But this ain't no pussy-ass Bible darkness where everybody's just like, that's weird from noon to 3. Hell no. This is 3 days of darkness, and that's not squint your eyes and hope you can make out who's at the door. We're talking total, literal blackout. Like, you can't light a candle, fire doesn't work, no sun, no moon, no stars, just everybody's completely blind now.
That really
for
complicates
3 days.
That really complicates the rescue efforts in the wake of this disaster.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
And we get it, Joseph Smith. Your dad can beat up the Bible's dad.
Right? It's true. So have fun and have fun finding food and water among the rubble of your life now with literally no vision at all. As you can imagine, this upset some folks. There was great mourning and howling and weeping, as there ought to be. Then came these interesting tidbits, which seemed to happen during that darkness. And in one place, they were heard to cry, saying, "Oh, that we had repented before this great and terrible day, and then would our brethren have been spared, and they would not have been burned in that great city Zarahemla." And in another place, they were heard to cry and mourn, saying, "Oh, that we had repented before this great and terrible day, and had not killed and stoned the prophets and cast them out. Then would our mothers and our fair daughters and our children have been spared, and not have been buried up in that great city Moroni-ha." So, here's the thing.
I can't take anything seriously that ends in ha.
No, nor should you.
Yeah.
Do you think the
but
residents
you
of that city called it the Ha?
Well, you have to differentiate it from the
Exactly.
city of Moroni. So, yeah, you're going to call it the Ha. Or Moha, if you're if you want
There
to
you go.
Anyway, look, here's what baffles me about those two verses. Somehow, in 3 days of complete darkness that immediately followed 3 hours of total devastation, these people got word about the destruction of cities miles
Right.
away from them?
Exactly.
I guess, I don't know, maybe NPR was still going? What the fuck are you talking about?
It's
Unless-
it's NPR. It's Mormon Public Radio.
Yeah.
There you
it's the voice of pre-Columbian America. They could still
The
get-
voice of Moroni, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And lest anyone think that all this destruction was just Mother Nature being her crazy random self, we move on to chapter 9, which begins with a voice which is heard among all the inhabitants of the earth, even though it wasn't reported anywhere else but in this book. That voice takes credit for destroying Zarahemla and Moroni-ha, specifically mentioning that he has killed all of the inhabitants. Then he keeps the list going with 13 more cities that he destroyed that we hadn't heard about yet. Honestly, it would have been easier to list the cities he didn't destroy.
Right.
Incidentally, among the cities that he did destroy, and this is true, listed back to back in this order are the city of Josh and the city of Gad, which is really weird because the actor Josh Gad was the original star of the Book of Mormon musical. I don't know how that plays into things, but somebody needs to develop a conspiracy
I'm
theory.
almost certain that was a Q drop.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. And why did
Q-ha.
this voice... What was that?
Q-ha.
Yes, indeed. It's the Mormon version of Q. And why did that voice kill the entire populations of all of these cities?
I would love to know because I don't think there was a justification. I'll be honest.
Wickedness and abominations. Literally, every single person in all those cities had been wicked. Meanwhile, everybody who was left got this message. O ye that are spared because ye were more righteous than they, will ye not now return unto me and repent of your sins and be converted that I may heal you? Which, yeah, I think maybe they might.
Yeah.
You just destroyed their whole world in 3 fucking hours and plunged them into 3 days of terrifying darkness with your superpowers. I think they'll probably do literally anything you say.
This is the most direct abusive boyfriend God voice ever. It's like, come on back, honey. Won't you come back? I'm sorry about all that.
100%.
Yeah.
And not for nothing, you can just kind of imagine them being like, hey, God, I don't disagree. But there's this city on the other side of the world that just fucking nailed your son to a tree.
Right.
So what do they get?
What do they get? Well,
ruined drapes.
They look, there were some real creepy people walking around for like
an afternoon of zombies is what they get.
So there.
Yeah.
But the former thing, that was the stick. Here comes the carrot. Yea, verily I say unto you, if ye will come unto me, ye shall have eternal life. Behold, mine arm of mercy is extended towards you, and whosoever will come, him will I receive, and blessed are those who come unto me. This gaslighting motherfucker murders hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people, and then comes in talking about mercy. That is some Stockholm Syndrome shit right there.
Yep.
Then the voice introduces himself as Jesus, Son of God, the creator of the earth and everything that's on it. Which, if you thought that God created earth, you're wrong. And don't think for one second that God and Jesus are the same guy, because they're not. And you can only really understand the intricacies if you go through the Mormon temple, which don't. So, but Uncle Doug can tell you all about it.
I'd be happy to.
We should do the temple ceremony.
Boy, I would have to refresh my memory in a way that I am not comfortable with, but fair enough.
Well, maybe I'll take it on, since I don't have the associated trauma.
I've a while ago thought that we should do for a patron-only bit that we're 3 theater reviewers and review the play in the temple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. So after Jesus gaslights everybody he didn't kill in the Americas, there are several hours where everyone is just silent. Apparently just literally trying to process everything.
They're just giving it a think.
Or maybe they're trying not to get fucking killed.
Right? They're trying not to be noticed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is funny, because apparently this makes Jesus so super uncomfortable that he pipes up again and is so weirded out by all of this that he uses the same metaphor of being a hen gathering her chicks under her wing 4 times in 3 verses. Literally says the whole phrase 4 fucking times. It's bizarre. And when he's done talking, suddenly everybody flips out and starts howling again. And apparently the earth had been quaking the whole 3 days of darkness, which is extra terrifying. But all of that finally stopped. And the mourning and the weeping stopped. And inexplicably turned to joy.
Oh my
Hooray! God. And they all praised Jesus, their Redeemer.
Wow, they're just going down the whole emotional checklist.
Yeah, it is absolutely the 5 stages.
Yeah.
I do not know about you guys, but that's one hell of a mood swing.
Yeah.
Both for Jesus, who switches on a dime from Gozer the Destroyer to benevolent Redeemer of the world, and then for the Nephites, who can apparently have the most traumatizing experience imaginable, and then flip the switch to rejoicing in an instant. But that just gets us through chapter 10. Tune in next week for the exciting conclusion of 3rd Nephi, the re-Jesusing.
Oh, God.
Good stuff.
No, there's more.
Wow. I'm just impressed you had the patience to go through that all again.
Oh my God. I literally texted you guys crying about it. So
Make it stop.
it's painful.
Yeah.
But again, we do it so you don't have to, you at home.
I'm
So,
so
And I love
you're
how
welcome.
they're all of a sudden rejoicing. They haven't buried their dead yet.
No.
The putrefying corpses of their loved ones are still smashed beneath their cities.
They
And
have
they're like,
not had-
hooray!
They had, like, literally the lights come back on and they're like, oh, this is fine. Yeah, this was fine. What were we all complaining
This
about?
is better than it was a minute ago. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, the people are either dead or stupid. So, can't wait for this to
There
conclude.
you go.
They can be both.
It can be both. All right, moving on.
Hey, Uncle Doug.
Well, hello.
I feel like they've gone out and they've made a Mesopotamia. That's literally all I got. Because, but Mesopotamia means either middle of the river or the middle. It has to do with the middle and a river.
Between the rivers, yeah.
I thought it meant a whole lot of Potamias.
It's a whole mess of them.
A whole Mesopotamias. Well, I can tell you a little something about that little region of the world, fellas. You know,
Please do. Otherwise, we don't have a segment for this.
It's interesting, and we've mentioned this on the show before. I think we can all see the patterns in what we cover start to emerge after almost 180 shows. I find I do a lot of cults, and I do animals, and also space-related argle-bargle seems to be in my wheelhouse. I also seem to cover the Mesopotamian beat quite a bit.
Sure.
I'm not sure why. It may be that I was taking my foundations of Western civilization course at the same time I was taking my first college art history class, and both were pretty heavy on the Sumerian Babylonian angle.
Right.
And had to read the Epic of Gilgamesh at the same time, which kind of blew my mind because I thought it was awesome. But here we are again today, or there we are, way over that away, in that hot and troubled land in between those two big-ass and flood-prone rivers, Mesopotamia. And today I want to have a quick chat about some of the oldest gods of that mysterious land that have absolutely nothing to do with anything in the world today. I mean, oh God, I wish that were true. Why do I do this to myself every fucking week? Fuck my life. And those old dead gods are the Anunnaki.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you
I'm
go.
pretty sure
So
you made that up.
I did. I might as well have. They first appear in the art of Sumer around 2100 BCE, so they're old as shit. They are descended. Those gods are the descendants of An and Ki, the ancient gods of heaven and earth, respectively. Their main purpose was to decide the fates of humans. Enlil, god of the air, is the chief god of the Mesopotamian culture, and there were several Mesopotamian cultures, and he is the oldest of the Anunnaki. Prior to his birth, heaven and earth were fused, but he rendered them asunder, carrying away the earth while his father An carried away the sky. So that probably happened.
That was a mistake.
That was a terrible mistake. So while there is some disagreement, most scholars think they include what they include what are called the seven gods who decree, and those are An, Enlil, Ninhursag, Nana, Utu, and Inanna. Their depictions are generally anthropomorphic, but what writings that have been found of them describe them as being of enormous size, but they're just kind of like giant human-ish. I should point out, in no artistic depiction or surviving text do they have any lizard-like or reptilian attributes at all.
Oh, rude.
Don't know why I had to say that. I just did. Oh, never mind. So that's it. And that's the Anunnaki, just some dusty old relics in a museum and a fascinating creation myth from the other side of the world. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah,
Great.
but
Let's move on.
It's fucking not. So
Oh.
apparently, I'm not the
feel
only one.
tricked.
I'm a tricker. I'm not the only one out there who finds the earliest possible stories and fragments of human imagination deeply fascinating. And where I and we three look at these things as evidence of humanity's search for answers and meaning in a frightening world, and evidence of strictly human genius and imagination, others look at these partial artifacts of our shared past and find proof.
Yeah.
Proof of what? I know listeners are asking while bracing for impact. Why? Proof that humanity is a hybridized slave species who took an oath to always be servile to giant, hyperannuated, reptilish, interdimensional demigods who came here from the constellation Draco, or wait, maybe the constellation Orion, or actually probably the planet Nibiru, which orbits our sun every 345,000 years and passes through the inner planets now and then, and that they are super loving and or homicidally hostile to us and may come back or maybe have never left. And also the gray aliens fucked up their whole experiment when they, the grays, polluted our already hybridized DNA with their stupid gray DNA, making us less useful as enslaved miners of monoatomic gold, which is what crazy people call gold, meaning a special kind of gold with only one atom, but any ninth grader will know that gold is an element, thus only comprised of one atom, therefore it's just called gold. And obviously the Nephilim of the Bible are what happened when the intergalactic Anunnaki mated with angels, and how obviously Ziusudra, the ancienter source, material from which Noah is in the Bible is cribbed via Utnapishtim, did not actually build a boat to weather the flooding Euphrates, but rather used a rocket ship to fly off into orbit to wait out the flood. And trust me, I will eventually get to the Jews.
I quit the show.
Always end up with the Jews. Everybody clear? Okay, pencils down. If you answered C, all it makes is sense. You are correct.
The copper I taste smells like toast.
Oh, we're going to get to the copper too, Doug. So, guys, we do this every week. And while we enjoy it, make some big-ass atheist Soros bucks while we do it, there are times, very much like this, when doing the research makes me feel like so much intelligence is being sucked out of my head that my skull is going to cave in. I probably read 10 or so quote articles and watched 3 hours of appalling videos on that. Joe Biden, can you please have the FCC yank the ironically named History Channel's license like now?
Yeah.
And I listened to a couple of excruciating podcasts on the subject. I have never felt more stupid. This was as agonizing as watching Mormon General Conference, but with giant lizards, which not so different.
Is the
really.
Same as watching Mormon General
Exactly
Conference.
right.
I
So
don't know what's the difference?
Where to begin? I guess the seed of this insanity comes from the discovery of something called the Sumerian Kings List, which we've mentioned once before on the show, which is it's a really cool, real artifact of ancient Mesopotamia. It lists 100 kings, the most recent of which was a guy named Damik Ilishu, who ruled around 1940 BCE for 23 years. The kings before him ruled for 11 years, for 4 years, for 3 years, for 24 years, etc., etc. Likely real kings with normal spans on the throne. But the list goes back just a bit more. 266,000 years more.
Oh my God.
With kings like Aga of Kish ruling for 625 years, Melem Kish ruling for around 900 years, Etana, also known as the shepherd who ascended to heaven and consolidated all the foreign countries, quite the diplomat. They have him ruling for 1,500 years. And then you go all the way back to Ubara Tutu, whose reign was cut short at a mere 18,600 years. And the firm but fair Ensipad Zid Ana, who reigned 28,800 years. And of course, Enmenlu Ana, who sat on the throne for a mere 43,200 years.
Jesus Christ.
Lou for short.
Cool story, bro. Now, where we can see this as an impressive young society feeling its oats and wanting to extend its legitimacy from its real royal lineage back into its imagined beginning of time via myth-making, such giants of research and truth-seeking as Erich von Daniken, the imprisoned Swiss loon and author of the laughably terrible The Chariots of the Gods, whom we anally probed in episode 129, and the buffoonish clown and now anti-masker COVID denier David Icke, we cackled at in episode 42. They see the Sumerian king list as true as a court reporter's transcript. No questions asked. It's just the facts.
Right.
Now, while scientists say that modern humanity is 200,000 to 300,000 years old, 200,000 to 300,000 years old, the snake oilers of the New Age insist organized, megalithic, literate civilization is much, much older. Evidence be damned, and the King's List proves it. The end.
Yeah, I don't know how you can say evidence be damned when there's that big piece of evidence just sitting right there.
And they literally, like, you watch these horrible, and they're, quote, documentaries, which they are not. And these guys are like, well, we know that human lifespans were longer because Methuselah lived X number of years and Noah lived X number of years.
Oh, God, help me.
Yes, Your Honor, the prosecution rests.
Right.
And how can our humble hominidness have become so complex eons before there is any dirt-based or radiocarbon evidence of it? It's because 30-foot tall, very beautiful space travelers who lived to be 300 to 5,000 years old either jiggled here from the lizard constellation Draco via the lower dimension number 5, or jumped off the silent but violent 10th planet, Nibiru, as it swung by us in its eccentric and so far undetected orbit, as laid out in Zechariah Sitchin's numerically perfect name book, The 12th Planet. That's right. A book about the non-existent 10th planet, Nibiru, is called The 12th Planet.
Yeah, you don't know about the non-existent other ones.
I love the idea, too, that you can be from a constellation.
Right?
This grouping of stars that are like, millions of light years apart and only seem a coincidental shape from our perspective.
Right.
Is not a place.
Right.
So anyway, according to Sitchin, the Anunnaki of planet 10 or 12, whichever it was, came here, found our pre-Homo sapien ancestors, gave them a big old boost of their own DNA, and made us Homo sapiens in order to mine monoatomic, no, fuck it, gold, it's just gold. and what did they need our gold for, guys?
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I still don't know what anybody needs gold for.
You're going for the most practical thing you can imagine using gold for. To patch, and he really says this, holes in their atmosphere. That's right. They made a slave species to mine gold, a metal almost twice as heavy as lead, to cork holes in their sky. So,
wow, that's impressive. That is an impressive level of stupid.
Yeah, that's not going to end well for you guys. Anyone who lives under that hole is in a world of hurt. A very expensive and elegant death, but death nonetheless.
That's why you only need one molecule of it. Anything else, and it's too heavy.
It's too heavy. Gold floats.
Where did monoatomic? It just sounds something.
This is just part of this conspiracy world. Like monoatomic gold is, and I'll show it again. It's very important to them. but again, gold is monoatomic.
Right, exactly.
It's an element.
Is there a polyatomic gold?
It's like monoatomic helium.
Right.
Yeah. It's an element.
I tend to think that what they're actually saying is they just want one atom's worth of gold. They don't want gold that comes in one atom. They want one atom of gold.
That would explain why they had so much time to plug the hole.
Right.
Well, it turns out there isn't really an orthodoxy among believers in the Anunnaki. Like so many conspiracy theories, it's a pretty open source code. Remember when I said I watched some, quote, documentaries on the Criminally Named History Channel, among other places? A bunch of, quote, experts, self-described authors and investigators appear on these shows. So I would casually, just to amuse myself, because they don't really explain who they are.
Right.
So I would write down their names as they appeared, and then after the show, I would just randomly Google some of them. So here is a sampling of the people appearing on your TV swearing this shit is real. Robert Cremo is a lizard god expert and a pseudo-archaeologist and author who believes that modern man has existed for 60 to 80 million years. He is a Vedic creationist who believes he has found human artifacts dating back 2.5 billion years, and who also likes to go by his Hare Krishna name, Drutakarma Dasa. So,
good.
He for sure knows about the origins of Mesopotamian civilization.
Totes.
Linda Moulton Ho, or Howe, I guess Howe, not sure how to say it, is an author and researcher who says she has proof that our Anunnaki overlords had, and here it is, Doug, copper-based blood, which they passed down through hybridization to the Merovingians, who became several of the European royal houses, whose blood also has that coppery content, making it obviously blue, thus the slang term for royalty, blue blood.
Great.
Yeah. They have blue blood. So
we would. What's nice is we can test all this. So obviously she has, and obviously it's been confirmed.
yeah, and every one of these people is talking. When you see them on these shows, they are talking. What they're talking about are absolute facts to them.
Right.
They're not. Here's an interesting theory, or here's an idea I have, or I'm trying to prove this. Nope, it's just fact.
Right.
How about
You
Lawrence?
don't have to prove it if it's already a fact.
Yeah, it's already
Mark.
proved. How about Lawrence Gardner, also known as Chevalier Lebrun de Saint-Germain, also known as the President Attaché to the European Council of Princes, also known as the Prior to the Celtic Church's Sacred Kindred of St. Columbia, or just
my
Larry to
goodness.
his friends.
Can I just call him? Can he also be known as Shut Up?
Exactly. Well, yes, because he's dead now. But Larry wrote several books having to do with Jesus' bloodline, finding its way to King Arthur and then the royal house of Stuart. And, of course, that the Ark of the Covenant was a sophisticated machine for manufacturing, you guessed it,
Adrenochrome.
monoatomic gold.
Oh, my God.
damn it.
Or how about Englishman Nicholas Redfern, who is an avid ufologist, and cryptozoologist, who, among other probably very true things, believes that the fabled UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947 was an experimental Air Force flying saucer piloted by Japanese POWs who were either bonsaied to miniature size with radiation or suffered from the disease progeria. Don't forget to take him seriously.
Oh my God.
Or my favorite, David Childress, a prolific author and loon of the first water, that writes about and seems to believe in all sorts of things about our old stomping ground, Lemuria, also Nikola Tesla, anti-gravity, free energy, Sasquatch, the Yeti, time travel, the Bermuda Triangle, the Kennedy assassination, tons of stuff about UFOs, and a thing I had never heard of called Vimana, which are mythical ancient Indian flying palaces, which he claims were and are real, and that the megalithic structures of the non-white world were built by tall, blonde, seafaring Atlanteans wearing red turbans.
Oh, my God.
It was he.
It's the specificity that makes it really sound true.
The incredible, like, some of these guys talk about meetings, like in boardrooms that the Anunnaki had 4 billion years ago, and what was decided in the meetings. I'm not kidding. They're reading the notes
Is
of them.
LRH not a part of this? How
I don't know. I don't know why he didn't co-opt this or vice versa.
Right.
It was he, David Childress, when describing the Sumerian flood myth of Ziusudra that we discussed in episode 133, suggested that Ziusudra did not build a boat to survive the deluge, but rather a rocket to fly into orbit in 2900 BCE to wait out the flooding of the Euphrates River, which the History Channel happily illustrated by showing some sort of futuristic plasma pulse rocket rising skyward from a Mesopotamian ziggurat, for fuck's sake.
Oh, love it.
So
Perfect.
I know, it's bananas. So this gets us to two of the very real issues with this bullshit. The first is what I call the unified field theory of conspiracy theorists, which is just another name for a version of the argumentum ad absurdum, which is, it could have happened like that, so it probably did.
Right.
Right? Nope, that is not how reason or research or deduction or anything at all works. That is stupid. And that brings us to a more insidious part of this stupidity, which is the racism and cultural chauvinism that undergirds it all. And that brings us to the How To Heretics' tried and true rule of thumb when gazing at the wonders of the ancient world. Just because white people didn't build it, that doesn't mean aliens did.
Right.
Now, recall just above when I said David Childress believes the Atlanteans were blonde. This is what is at the bottom of the Anunnaki bullshit. White Westerners, since at least the time of Elena Blavatsky, look at the staggering architecture, writing, art, and culture of a place like Mesopotamia or Egypt, or they look at the Mayans or Rapa Nui, and conclude, well, these savages couldn't have done this, so ipso facto aliens.
Right.
It is such racist garbage, the History Channel should be sued under the hate crime statutes for airing it. And remember I said I was going to get to the Jews? Jews are always lurking behind the things like the lizard people, the Anunnaki, etc. Are they not? So
Yes, indeed.
In one of the documentaries that was not on the History Channel, there was a very informative chart that they showed when they were talking about how the Anunnaki enslaved us via the financial system. I took a screenshot so I could explain it to you. It's a graph presented as the Illuminati kind of version of the all-seeing eye on the back of the dollar bill.
Right.
And the pyramid is sliced into 13 layers. At the top, it says archons and other invisible matter. Just so everybody knows, archons are kind of another sort of Anunnaki race. And then it says higher level malevolent extraterrestrials, for example, the Anunnaki. There's the second layer. Then it says lower level malevolent extraterrestrials, for example, Dracos and reptilians, David Icke's obsession. Then below that, the Vatican / the Roman Catholic Church. Then below that, the builder.
The Vatican.
Of course, it's the Vatican. And you know what? It probably is.
Yeah.
Then below the Vatican are the Bilderbergers, which is wrong because the Bilderbergs, not the Bilderbergers, are the family of Jewish financiers they're looking to impugn. Right. Then at number 6, something terribly menacing called the Business Advisory Council. Which I believe is out in the strip mall on Route 6.
I think it's out in the strip mall right next to Build-A-Burger.
Yeah.
And below that, the Council on Foreign Relations. Then, of course, the United Nations banking complex. By that, of course, they mean globalist Jewish bankers.
Right.
Then the Federal Reserve, which is just a stalking horse for these people since forever. Then the United Nations itself. Then something called the Council of 13. Then the Committee of 300, whatever the fuck that is. And at the base of the pyramid, secret societies, which is a grab bag of Freemasons and blood-sucking Jews. Every inch of this fucking theory is either utter trash that doesn't even rise to the level of pseudoscience, accidental comedy, racism, and general ignorance. It's funny for sure, but then it's not really, is it?
Yeah.
There are armed people in our Capitol building who believe this shit, and I don't mean the ones with Confederate flags and zip ties. I mean the ones with offices that have their names on the doors. And yes, the overlap between Christianity, QAnon, and the Anunnaki conspiracy is substantial.
Yeah.
You can and they do believe all 3 of these things and more at once, and they can do it without what's left of their brain short-circuiting somehow. So we have a Jesus-loving member of Congress who believes that Sandy Hook, the murder of 21st grade children among others, didn't happen, that the California wildfires were started by a space laser owned by secretive Jewish bankers to make way for a high-speed rail, and that Donald Trump was sent by Jesus to rule America in perpetuity. And this person I don't even want to name her, this person in Congress is where the energy in the Republican Party is, and likely to stay perhaps for years. So if this is what makes me crazy about like this History Channel shit. So if you're maybe a teenager or a stone 20-something that's into Egyptian stuff or think ancient civilizations are cool, and you see some adult looking people with English accents on the History Channel speaking with great confidence about space Babylonians altering our DNA and then building ziggurats as spaceports, you might think, huh, that's cool. And when I watch these fucking videos, I see what YouTube wants to show me next, right?
Right.
And down the algorithmic rabbit hole you go, where within a matter of just hours, the absurd becomes normalized, and your brain is broken enough for the next level of secret knowledge you now have been invited into, and just down and down and down and down you go. So I wish we could just laugh at this stuff. I wish we could just point at how stupid it is. But, you know, if you type Anunnaki into a Google search, Anunnaki into Google search and search images, I think I counted 40 books on the market.
Oh my God.
You know, and just endless videos and merch and just, it's crazy.
Well, and which James Bond movie was it where the villain was building a space-based laser to make room for some nice infrastructure?
Well, it's kind of Moonraker.
It was Real Genius, wasn't it?
Real Genius.
Oh, no, there was a space laser. I think that was Diamonds Are Forever. I do, because it had a big diamond reflector.
I don't think it was for like a nice, affordable light rail between two metropolitan areas. But that's just
right.
me.
Which is clearly a Jewish obsession since, you know. the second temple, right? So
Yeah. God,
Burning
this
down the
stuff
forests to
is-
save our environment.
Exactly. It's breaks your mind.
yeah,
It's so stupid.
I tweeted out that I was researching this week's subject. I was going to get a repetitive motion injury from shaking my head. Like I'm watching a rocket shoot out of a ziggurat, and the guy's like, "Yeah, that's what Ziusudra did." Like,
God.
fucking God.
Well,
So
I mean, it's all been proven,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
So,
well, there you have it, guys.
Well,
so
thanks for that.
You're as dumb as I am now.
all right.
Jesus
Well, then let's
Christ.
move on before we get any dumber.
Fuck.
Oh, fellas.
Hi.
Oh, hello.
I don't know if you know this, but we're doing a show as we speak. We're making content
For the kids.
for the kids. We put it out there into the world. We say, hey, go ahead, enjoy.
Let us go off and worship other gods together, we say.
Yeah, exactly.
Still,
And,
that is my favorite fucking line from the Bible. I just love, you like in Sesame Street, the guy that would open his trench coat and he had like watches for sale or a letter for sale or whatever.
Right.
It's
buy
so
a watch?
conspiratorial. Like, hey, psst. Hey, mister.
Come over here.
And then the guy's like, okay, let's do it. Yeah. I just love that line. I love it.
I do too. All right. So anyway, one of the things that happens is that some of these people open up their coats and drop a watch into our Patreon.
They buy a letter.
They give us their money, and that's how we keep going, and we really appreciate it. And we got a good one. We got a bumper crop this week.
Nice.
So we got a lot of people to thank. So thanks to Midgie. I want to say Midgie. Linda. Skip those two. Jordan, Ryan, Dan, and then we need to bestow some sainting. So, Uncle Mark, please give a saint to Kenneth.
I've been waiting to give a saint for so long to Kenneth. So I have a special one in mind. And this one from the big book of saints that I don't have here on my desk is this Saint Velvetia, the Akimbo of Ypsilanti. And the Saint Velvetia is the patron saint of margarine producers. And of course, any lives lost to pole vaulting. And so this is including actual participants, bystanders, or high-stakes gamblers. And he is also the patron saint of the Pacific Garbage Patch.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Woo.
It's a good one.
That's beautiful. It's
premium saint.
And Uncle Doug,
Whoa.
Are you ready? I need you to whip out a saint for Dan.
Dan, let me find a saint that's not as boring as your name.
Rough.
That's coming from Doug, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
He's a patron. Just
it
keep
is
in
a
mind.
well-known fact that all Dans are handsome and smart. So,
All right, Dan, your name is your saint is named Saint Angola, the rock and roller, the indifferent of all the delicious parts of Mauritius, just the delicious parts. He's the patron saint of cereal grains that are not used in any cereal, the study of very small rocks that float, and of course, as everyone knows, colorblind Elton John impersonators.
Yeah, for sure.
now that's a segment of society that actually needs sainthood, that needs the
Exactly.
help. They need intercessors on their behalf.
Knowing what I know about Elton John's costumery, I don't think it would matter.
Right?
Yeah. And with all respect to Elton.
Of course.
Indeed. And for those of you out there in the world who can't afford to give us your money or choose not to for any other mean reasons, you can go and give us 5 stars on your various things in your iTunes and your whatever. You can write a review of the show that's generous and overly kind.
Hyperbolic, really.
Just fucking lie.
Swing
Say
for the
we're
fences.
amazing. No one. There is no God to hold you to account for it. So
Yeah.
anyway, you can do that like Riyab Haber has done, and this is what they wrote. titled "Irreverent, Funny, and Just a Little Bit Sweet." That I don't know which one of us corresponds with which word, but anyway, we'll get to it.
I'm the sweet one, motherfucker.
The hosts of this show take on the role of friendly, rebellious uncles that you can turn to when you realize you have fallen out of religion. Their goal is to inform you about the world you left behind, why you are better off, and that you are not alone. I recommend this show to everybody who is doubting, who has just left, who got out years ago, or even those who never were religious. The episodes remain topical, so the back catalog is worth giving a listen. You won't regret getting involved with this show or the community that has grown up around it. Now, how does it get better than that? I don't know. You tell me by writing one of these damn things so that I can read yours on the air.
We're going to have to start living up to these reviews, and I don't know if I'm ready.
I don't think we have to do that at all.
Well, either that or I don't know if I can keep writing these reviews, you guys. It's really getting hard on me.
Yeah, Uncle Doug keeps having to create new
login
credentials. So there you go. Thanks so much to everybody. We sure do appreciate you. If you want to give to us, go to howtoheretic.com, click on the thing with the stuff, and you'll be able to do it, and that's really great.
Love ya.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, Uncle Dan.
Hey there.
You know, I think that there aren't many things that are absolutely dependable truisms in this world, right?
Aliens are one.
Aliens are for sure real and come from Orion.
Right.
But I think one of the real truisms we can always count on is that calling anything a blitz is never a good thing.
No.
Right?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I mean, unless you're German, and then it's just lightning.
Look, the Nazis gave it a bad name.
They did. But you know what? You know who can actually just take a good old Nazi-ruined thing and run with it? I think, Uncle Doug, you've got some people that you can talk to us about.
Yeah, they've shown that to be their speciality in the last few weeks, right? Well, dear uncles, over the last few weeks, I, like many of you, have pretty much given up on the notion that 2021 is going to be substantially better than 2020. Let's not forget that we rang in the new year with a white nationalist mob storming the American Capitol, waving a Confederate flag that never made it there during the Civil War. And now new, far more contagious strains of COVID-19 are popping up fucking everywhere, meaning that theaters have once again delayed the release of the Dune movie, which is the only thing that's keeping me alive right now. And it was announced that Avatar 2 will be released the week before Christmas 2021, meaning that no matter what happens this year, however good, however hopeful, the year is going to end badly.
Well, Jesus doesn't give with both hands.
So we might as well knuckle down and dig in and lean into these brutal headwinds. In that spirit, I got the subject for today's segment from listener Devin. With all the insanity of the last 12 months or so, vacillating between dark humor and humorless darkness, I put off this subject, but it now seems more apt than ever. Many listeners to this show and to our sister show, TGIA, will no doubt recognize the name of Project Blitz, as it has been in the news a lot over the last few years, mostly as a favorite punching bag for secular groups like Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and American Atheists. But for those of you who don't know, let's talk a bit about it. I want to talk a bit about the group itself, their tactics, successes, and failures, but I am far from the first to tackle this subject, and there are myriad resources online about this group that will undoubtedly do a better job than I in encapsulating its particular brand of creeping evil. Then I want to spend some time talking about their stated and unstated goals, mostly stated, because that's where the things get really nefarious. In a nutshell, Project Blitz is a collection of Christian right groups and organizations founded in 2015 with the stated goal to, quote, protect the free exercise of traditional Judeo-Christian religious values and beliefs in the public square, and to reclaim and properly define the narrative which supports such beliefs. So, again, the Judeo-Christian there is, the Judeo and Judeo-Christian there is kind of window dressing to hide the true evil, like
of
calling
course
yourself.
it is.
Yeah, it's
Think
calling
of it
yourself
with a wink.
Exactly. It's like calling yourself a former pedophile.
Oh, God.
The coalition includes, but is far from limited to, the Wall Builders, Pro-Family Legislators Conference, the National Legal Foundation, which sounds somewhat innocuous, Integrity Leadership, equally so, and the Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation, or CPCF.
Yeah, that doesn't sound so innocuous to me.
That one's a little less than innocuous. Wall builders, by the way, comes from a particular passage in Nehemiah in the Bible, not Trump's border wall that didn't get built.
Oh, you don't have to tell me about Nehemiah. I'm a Nehemiah stan.
We're all over Nehemiah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you grew
That's
up in
my K-pop.
That's right. If you grew up in the Ha like we did. Because each of these organizations is supported by several other organizations with heavily incestuous relationships, it's actually kind of hard to pin down the full network of partners and supporters. But that, of course, is part of the plan. Project Blitz was never meant to be in the limelight. In fact, as we'll talk about, it very explicitly was designed to operate behind the scenes. And in fact, because these various secular groups not only publicize the name of the organization, but have had some success in defeating them in court, Project Blitz has rebranded itself as Freedom for All. Fun fact, the first hit on Google that comes up for Project Blitz is a clearinghouse for high-end clothing and shoes. The first hit, yeah. So these guys are not looking for publicity. As we'll talk about, this organization is, the whole idea is that it operates in the shadows.
Yeah, it's like the family, right?
Exactly.
From Jeff Charlotte's book, The Family.
Yeah, and the first hit that comes up for Freedom for All is an organization that fights human trafficking around the world. And the second post that comes up on Google is for a pro-LGBTQ organization called Freedom for All Americans. And it seems pretty clear that they actually took that name to kind of fuck with the search engine optimization of Freedom for All.
Yeah.
But, good for them.
Good for them.
Yep. So you have to either go into the secular websites about Project Blitz or websites like wallbuilders.com or the CPCF Foundation or truthandliberty.net and search around a bit to find the links. And mostly what you'll end up is something called the 2018-2019 Report and Analysis on Religious Freedom Measures Impacting Prayer and Faith in America, or RARMPFYA.
I always read the RARMPFYA.
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. This is also known as the Playbook. More on that in just a minute. Project Blitz was founded as the legislative arm of this collection of Christian right groups. And like its name implies, it's a multi-pronged assault on the separation of church and state in America. Like you said, Uncle Mark, naming something Blitz, which is literally means an all-out frontal assault on more than one front, is exactly what this is meant to be. The Playbook offers state legislators various talking points and tactics to promote pro-Christian legislation, and even offers model proclamations and model legislation that legislators can simply copy and paste into their legislative agendas.
They do.
And they do. All they need to do is add their state's names, and boy howdy have they worn out the Control-C and the Control-V buttons down to the nub.
Right.
We'll get back to the bills and proposed legislation in a minute. The main vector for this virus of the mind is the aforementioned Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation. The stated purpose for this particular foundation is to, quote, provide forums for high-level leaders within federal, state, and local governments to connect, strategize, and strongly advocate for Judeo-Christian values and religious liberty. So, fun. This particular group was founded by Robert Forbes, a prominent Virginia Republican who left the House, the U.S. House of Representatives in 2017, and yes, before you ask, a huge Trump supporter. These forums or quorums often take the form of legislative prayer caucuses. These are either prayer breakfasts or lunches that take place on state property and have been established in 39 states, with caucuses trying to get off the ground in 3 more. The caucuses give legislators the chance to meet with each other and Christian rights activists and peruse the playbook. Many of the successful successful and attempted bills proposed by these right-wing legislators were born in these meetings. Most of the state legislators involved in this movement are Republicans, but not all. One notable exception is Jacksonville, Florida Democrat and self-proclaimed demon buster Representative Kim Daniels.
Oh my God.
Aside from the corruption you might expect from this type of Christian, in 2019 she tried to pass a mandatory moment of silence bill in public schools, which, as we'll talk about, is one of the tactics of Project Blitz. Her initiative failed, and it seems listener Devin may have had a small part in its defeat. Yeah, she testified against it several times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Daniels then took to Facebook Live, and either her or one of her staffers referred to Devin, who was standing only feet away, as either the angriest or the ugliest atheist they'd ever seen.
What?
Yeah, needless to say, Devin wears this as a badge of honor.
Yeah. And needless to say, that person has never seen any of us.
This is Devin, our super smart brain scientist?
Look,
patron.
let's not oversell her, okay? She's a listener.
No, I'm asking. Is that who it is?
Yeah, that's who it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to cover as to the breadth, scope, and structure of Project Blitz / Freedom for All, but I do want to get onto their goals, strategies, and tactics, because that's where the rubber really meets the road. Most of this comes right out of the playbook. Legislators are advised to begin testing the waters with seemingly anodyne proclamations. Proclamations are just that. They have no legal power, they cannot be enforced, and they're mostly used to honor local heroes or industries or culture. Think, Calamari Day in Rhode Island, or, whatever, Child Suicide Day in Utah.
Jesus.
However, what better way to figure out who may be on your side in the future than by forcing your state legislature to vote on, say, a proclamation recognizing Christmas, which is in there, or recognizing the importance of the Bible in history, or recognizing Religious Freedom Day. If the waters are favorable, as they are in most of the states in this country, you can then move on to the model legislation, which, again, is already written for you in the playbook. Just fill in the name of your state. Here, for example, is the National Motto Display Act. This bill would mandate that, quote, "In God we trust" shall be prominently displayed in a conspicuous place in all public elementary and secondary school classrooms and libraries in this state, in all public colleges and universities in this state, and in each government building or facility in this state. Now,
Wow.
I can hear you asking, what about the font size and legibility of these signs? Don't worry. The legislation goes on, quote, "The display must be easily readable and on a durable poster or framed copy of at least specified dimensions, e.g. 11 by 11 inches by 14 inches, and must include a true correct representation of the American flag centered under the national motto." Yeah. It bears repeating that "In God We Trust" was only made our national motto in 1956. We talked about this in a previous show.
Yeah.
In response to the godless communists.
Right.
This motto supplanted "E pluribus unum," out of many one, which had been in use since 1776, because it clearly does not apply to this country anymore, if it ever did.
Right.
Yeah.
There are 21 model bills as of now that you can choose from, and they're all written in the same kind of officious detail. The bills range in scope wildly, but are clearly meant to proceed down a continuum to state-sanctioned Christian nationalism. And I'm not extrapolating this or coming to this conclusion myself.
No, that's their goal.
That's their goal. They progress from bills mandating "In God We Trust" as an option on license plates to mandating a Christian Heritage Week, a year of the Bible, mandatory Bible study in public schools, and restoring prayer in schools, to outlawing adoption by homosexual couples, allowing healthcare providers to refuse healthcare to LGBTQ individuals, mandating that birth gender be enforced on government documents and public restrooms, outlawing homosexual intercourse, outlawing extramarital intercourse, and on and on and on. Yeah. All these bills are
Basically,
written
they're just like, here, take Leviticus, vote on it. Good.
pretty fucking much. Yeah. And all these bills are written out, ready to be put on the floor of any state house in the country. And sometimes as often as once a week, legislators in these various states gather to review these bills and discuss which ones they'll try their hands at today. They have been successful.
They have been very successful, yeah.
Over 70 bills lifted directly out of the handbook have been proposed in over 20 states. Most have failed, but a few have passed, most notably in several states, including our own, the "In God We Trust" option on the license plates.
Yep.
I'm sure you both have seen these around.
Oh, yeah.
They're always the best drivers, too.
That it I hate to be this way, but it always kind of like when someone cuts me off and they've got like a, greatest snow on earth. I'm like, yeah, come on in, buddy.
Do we still have the Arches license plate?
We still have the
I like
Arches,
that
yeah.
one. That's pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty. So let's compare the language of HB 127 from the 2016 legislative session here in Utah to the language of the playbook. Now, it's not exactly the same. So, quote, Decals, this is from the Utah law. Decals displayed on license plates with the "In God We Trust" slogan issued in accordance with subsection 4B shall be applied in the upper right-hand corner of the rear license plate. And then this is similar language from the playbook. The motto of the United States, "In God We Trust," printed in color, lettering over a background containing the American flag, having the letters and numerals of the plate number in color lettering, have below the plate number, state mentioned here, printed in color. It's not word for word, but it's pretty obvious that one gave birth to the other. So it's quite obvious that Project Blitz is applying that slippery slope tactic here pretty hard. If they can get a proclamation recognizing Christmas, then they can get an "In God We Trust" license plate law. If they can get an "In God We Trust" license plate law, then they can get "In God We Trust" emblazoned in our schools. If they can get "In God We Trust" emblazoned in our schools, they can get state-sanctioned Bible study. If they can get Bible study in the schools, they can get moments of silence. If they can get moments of silence, they can get prayer in schools. And if they can get prayer in schools, then they can finally prevent butt sex.
Yeah.
Which has been...
And the idea isn't just like... It's not just a slippery slope. It's like you bombard people with so many of these bills that one or two slip through the cracks.
Precisely, yeah. Yeah. And depending on kind of, where your state is politically... a ban on gay adoption may not find any favor, but recognizing Christmas might slide through.
Yeah,
right. So it's this constant pressure in every crack there is. And to your point, Dan, you're absolutely right. And make no mistake, their goal is 100% Christian nationalism. Do you think they will make room for study of the Quran or the Torah or the Bhagavad Gita or the Book of Mormon in these study classes? Do you think this model legislation will allow for a Muslim to give the daily prayer in their local school, or a Hindu, or a Wicca? Now, we've long stated on this podcast that there's no better way to stop someone from believing in the Bible than to actually read it. But these Bible studies classes are not to be taught from a literary or historical perspective alongside the Epic of Gilgamesh or the Canterbury Tales. Their obvious and oft-stated goal is to cram Christianity into every corner of public life and eventually down the throat of every American. So I think, at least for white people a few years ago, the term white supremacy seemed a distant, overblown concept, consisting of mostly people in white sheets burning crosses. Mm-hmm. We now know better. Likewise, I think the term Christian nationalism can seem to many like theoretical or exaggerated. But if nothing else, Project Blitz and Freedom for All and the dim constellation of similar groups have laid bare their intentions. They desire an America where their particular flavor of white Christian evangelicalism is not only taught in our schools, but like Sharia law in Saudi Arabia, dominates our legal system, our government, and our civil society.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't believe me, go to wallbuilders.com and watch one of their weekly hour-long videos about the America they're trying to build and see where you think you might fit in it.
It's a hellscape. Yeah. It is a hideous horror, a nightmare. It's the Handmaid's Tale.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, and what's happened with these sort of people is they've taken this idea that religious freedom does not mean that it is not everybody exercising what they want to do in a pluralist society, and as long as they're not hurting anybody and minding their own business, fine, right? That's not to them. Religious freedom is you are free to practice my religion and my religion only.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like you guys are being really down on this whole thing. But I gotta say, The Handmaid's Tale only sucks if you're a handmaid. So I don't know why everybody's so
That's a hot take.
And you get a free bonnet.
I'm a straight white dude. This all sounds great to me.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is, now when you see an "In God We Trust" license plate, and here's the thing, you got to separate maybe the intention of someone who's just getting their license renewed, and sure, "In God We Trust," and the intentions of the people who put that option on the paper, but their intention is clear and it's there. So if you see someone with a "In God We Trust" license plate, or you hear of an effort to put the Ten Commandments on a courthouse lawn, or a lawmaker proposes a moment of silence bill, see it for what it is. These people are using, like how they use expanding wet wood in holes to crack granite in a quarry. Mm-hmm. These are all efforts to erode the already tenuous wall between our barely secular society and the fucking Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah,
but
and it's smart, like the literally the Blitz, just attacking on all fronts at once, right?
Well, and they are smart. They're super clever about it. They write these laws these sample laws that lawmakers can do, and they write them in such a way that they make it really hard to object to it,
Right.
and not sound like you're a Christian hater, which is what they're trying to do. They try and make it sound they make it so that if you object to it, your aunt is going to think you're really mean.
Right. Yeah. Or that if you object to any of these bills, you're an anti-religious bigot.
You're a bigot,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
But again, it's like they're not making space for anything but their own very narrow interpretation of anything.
Right.
What is their composition? Are they all? Is it all like a one particular evangelical stripe, or is it a broader coalition of Southern Baptists and this kind of evangelical? And
it's a broad coalition of a very narrow subset of Christian evangelicalism.
Well, except that they find common cause all the time
with
for
radical
instance,
Catholics
here in Utah
and Mormons, right.
They just released a new fucking abortion bill here in Utah that they'll be hopefully voting down. But like this kind of shit is like they find common cause with conservative legislators across the country, whether they're evangelical or not.
But that's the thing is, just like the Judeo part of Judeo-Christian, right? Like the Jews are not going to be at the end line with us,
right?
Like they might get down somewhere down the path, but once we step over the threshold, they ain't coming inside.
Yeah, and
the same with the Mormons and the Catholics, and
I don't think a lot of people know how much these denominations fucking hate each other, right? Like most evangelicals just despise the Mormons. Yeah. Right. And it's the Mormons have long had a problem with Catholics. But if it comes to limiting someone else's rights or hurting somebody else, boy, they can get on the same team pretty quick.
Yep. And so, one of the many ways to fight these people, and they need to be fought, they have to be stopped. This encroaching Christian nationalism is as dangerous as any other force in our very damaged country right now. One way to support the efforts to stop them is to support any of the myriad organizations actively opposing them all over the country. So, and this is a partial list: Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, the ACLU, NARAL, Freedom for All Americans, as I mentioned before, the Human Rights Campaign, National Center for Transgender Equality, National LGBTQ Task Force Action Fund, and on and on. But I'll tell you, if you can measure your value in the enemies you make, then Project Blitz is exactly as Devin described them to me, a group of douche knuckles.
Yeah, did you mention our friends at the FFRF, of course?
At the FFRF,
No, I mean, and like the list of it's much easier to find information of the people who are fighting against Project Blitz than on Project Blitz itself, which again is part of the point. But the constellation of organizations that are trying to stop these people is significant because what they're doing is so naked.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. This is part of what Frank and I over on TGIA, part of the reason that we're pushing for people to go out and run for office. People on our side, people who are, who are openly secular, just because we need to take a page from this playbook. They're running this playbook. They call it a playbook, and they're running it well, and they're doing it really brilliantly, and it's wrecking our country. So we need to learn from them. We need to do the same thing, but on the side of the angels, and in the meantime, also fight like dogs to get them to defeat them.
Yeah, this is where, I think you mentioned this when you were talking to our friend Derek Kitchen on TGIA, who is a Utah state senator who's an atheist. He's gay. He's all the awesome things. That because the Christian nationalists have kind of realized that they know they're a minority, and they've realized that even though they've managed to get some kooks into Congress, nationally, and they do have some people there, that where they're going to wage their fight is in state houses.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, because Republicans still have a lot of sway in state houses, so that's where this shit is going to start. That's where we need to start focusing our attentions is on the state houses and not let this happen right under our noses, right?
Yep.
In all 50 states.
It's tough because we talked about this in the patrons only. It's really hard to be focused on local government progress because it's if you've ever been to a city council meeting,
Oh dear God, it's the most boring thing you'll ever go to.
a state legislative session, it's painful.
Yeah.
It is what it is, but that, while we're all kind of focused on, how great the entire series of Avatar movies is going to be once they're all released, these people are focused on local city and state government, county and state government, and they are focused like a laser, and they're making progress.
Right, and never underestimate the energy of a zealot.
Yeah.
Right? That they're people, this is all they will do all day long. It's like a cult. So that's the kind of level of energy that needs to be combated. If we're going to prevent this country from becoming Gilead.
What's funny about that is that your local state senator or representative, we're so used to trying to call our federal, our two senators or our representatives in Congress in the U.S. in the Capitol, pardon me. Mm-hmm. All you get is an answering machine, so you yell at that for a couple minutes and feel like you've done your duty.
Right.
I had an issue with some local thing, and I called my state senator, and she answered.
Yeah.
Right. She's like, hello. I'm like, oh, like this is an accessible form of government, and that's why they've found such traction and cause. While we're still getting our frickin' pants on, they're out there marching.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
all good news.
Well,
Devin, I hope I did it justice, and you're not mad at me as you kind of always are.
She is the angriest atheist.
That's what I heard.
So, all right. Well, with that, let's all go vote.
We'll go blitz away.
Yep. Bye.
Well, friends, that is it for this week's show.
Hey, if you know the signs and symbols for the gray aliens that are your grandparents, send us an email at howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if your city that ends in a ha was destroyed in a completely inexplicable earthquake, you can call and leave us a message about it at 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. Or you can ha at me on Twitter at howtoheretic.
And as always, thanks to our incredible and generous patrons.
And thanks to our editor with the heart of monoatomic gold, Cody Layton.
And thanks to all of you friends for tuning in.
Bye, friends.
Bye.